Hey there guys, welcome back to ARTFX Studios, and this is 8 quick badass serum tips. Let's get started. Quick tip number 1. If you want to assign an LFO to something, and you assign an LFO to a knob that's set to exactly the 50% position, you will get a range that goes both positive and negative. Now, there's a really easy way how you can change it. You can of course go into the matrix and click that little button. But there's a much quicker way. If you hold down Alt and Shift on your keyboard and just click the button, it will switch between unipolar and bipolar mode for the modulation. Really helpful. Quick tip number 2. If you are creating a kick drum in Serum, like this one, really simple, you can use the envelope for the pitch. I mean, I've routed the LFO of envelope number 2 to the master tuning with a range of 24, and that creates that kick drum. But you can also do it with an LFO. What you do is, instead of envelope number 2, you simply choose LFO number 1, and I switch this one to envelope mode, and I change the rate, and now we have it in the LFO. But what's the cool thing about that? Well, you can bring up the grid size, and you can add additional dots right here, so you can really shape the way the kick drum is gonna sound. Quick tip number 3. If you are working in Serum and you have a sound like this one, which is just a default saw wave, I've set the phase all the way down to 0 and the randomized phase also all the way to 0, so that means that basically every time I trigger a note, the voices will be re-triggered, and most people think that will give you a mono sound. But in fact, this is still stereo, and if you really want to create a monophonic sound, you need to go into the global tab, and under oscillator 1 here for the Unison, you want to bring the width all the way down to 0. So now you have a fully monophonic sound. Let's just say I'm using the Unison create that kind of a sound. I now have a Unison, I now have detuning going on, but it's set to a width of 0%, so I can actually get a Unison without even going into the stereo field. It's just a mono Unison now. And we can just add in as much stereo as we want. That's really powerful. Quick tip number 4. If you have a big Unison kind of thing going on, like for instance something like that, if I open up this Serum, we have a pretty big one with 16 voices right now, and they're spread out quite a lot. Nice and even, and I just have that mono voice in the middle. Now if I go to the global tab, right here on the stack, if I hold down just the G note, and bring up the stack, now we get an additional octave on top of it. I can add 2 octaves, 3 octaves. So let's do 1 octave. So that way you can really get some interesting sounds out of the Unison. There's one more way, and that's down here. You have different ways of how the voices are spread in terms of the stereo field. By default it's set to linear, but if I set it to super, you can see that these voices are now spread out a little bit different. Gives a slightly different sound. You've got some other options here. Exponential, I think. Yeah, that's just like that. That's pretty cool as well. And inversed. Now we get a pretty big stereo kind of thing, because the voices are panned mostly to the sides. In the center there's really little voices in the center, so we get a lot of stereo out of this particular mode. And then you have the random one, which is pretty cool. It just randomly puts the voices somewhere every time a note is triggered. So that's just some really cool ways how you can get more out of the Unison. Quick tip number 5. In Serum you have a resampling option. Now if I just play this, you can hear I have a nice little sound. I can resample that sound into a wavetable. And by doing that, I'm just gonna set this to a length of 1 bar. So that turned it into that. And now I want to resample this entire patch into just one wavetable. I'm gonna go into the menu and I'm gonna do resample to oscillator A, like that. And now I'm gonna turn everything off. So I'm gonna turn it all off. I'm also going to get rid of this modulation, take that off, and now I have this is a wavetable. And I can bring this up. Do it like that. So it sounds a little weird, but it's definitely interesting. You can create interesting stuff with it. You can see how it looks. It looks kind of weird, but it's definitely a helpful tool. Now the same goes for the warping feature. If I go to here, and I have this same patch, but then just the first oscillator. Let's say I want to resample the warping mode on oscillator A. I go into the menu and I say render oscillator A warp. And what that's gonna do is, if I turn this off, it has now basically rendered out the warp mode that I just had. And theoretically it should still sound pretty much the same. So that's pretty cool. Quick tip number 6. Inside the new Serum, if you have the latest upgrade, there is a new reverb mode. Now, I made this patch just really quick. Sounds good, but it's using the old reverb mode. Well, it's still the old one, but it's a little bit upgraded, I think. It now has the Hall reverb mode, which is super awesome. It sounds much more realistic if you ask me. It has this spin and spin depth controls, which kind of like try to make the reverb sound more realistic. And if you go to the plate, you have this pre-delay and size, and on the Hall you have the size and the decay. Now, in my opinion, this one sounds much more realistic, and it's just so awesome to have this reverb inside Serum. I think if I set it to fully wet, you can really hear the difference. That's the plate reverb. And this is the Hall reverb. It sounds more realistic, definitely. Now, quick tip number 7. Quick tip number 7. If you have the latest Serum upgrade, there is now a really cool new feature. You can import PNG images and convert them into a wavetable. So I've got a little bit of a thing right here and I want to check it out. So I've made a few different ones, and I just played around with the backgrounds and the way they're colored to see what it does to the wavetable that's being created. So the first one, I just took the face of Obama, and if I just drag it in, now this is put on a black background, and this is just the image, and it says pixel luminance maps to amplitude. So if I do that, and now do this, it has created a really weird looking wavetable, but I guess it works. Sounds good. I made a few other ones. We have this one, troll face kind of thing, which I think looks kind of awesome. I have a zombie head. Looks kind of weird. I might have had to invert that one. It's kind of weird. And I played around a little bit. I put one on a gray background. This is 50% gray, so that should mean, in fact, that the default position of that background should be at the 0 crossing point. And it is. You can see that that is on the 0 crossing point now. And it just goes down for everything that's black. And it goes up for everything that's white. We got pure silence there. It's kind of awesome. Kind of works. So you can play around with that. Now I also took this one and I inverted the colors on it just to see what happens. So we just get the outline because that's white and all the other parts are. Okay, well that works. So you can, of course, you can do stuff like blurring images or put effects on it. You can convert them to black and white images, I guess, before importing them. You can do kind of cool stuff. I mean, you can go wicked with Photoshop and just, you know, really change up your images and then import them into Serum. So that's really cool as well. Quick tip number 8, that's just a final tip. If you own Serum, definitely check out the Xfer Records forum every now and then, because you will stay up to date with all the latest upgrades and new features for Serum. And the greatest thing is, if you want to see a feature implemented into Serum, you can actually post your requests on that forum, and the creator, Steve, will actually be there and respond to your requests and tell you if they're possible or not. So that's really cool and really helpful as well. That's it for this video. If you wanna get some of my sample packs and support my YouTube channel, then go to my website. The link is in annotation in the screen and in the description below this video. I'm also doing a competition right now, which you can find a video on my channel. It's called the Hardcore Challenge. Check it out if you want to win some cool prizes. Take part in the competition, and I hope to hear you guys' tracks soon. At least when you've started working and just want to show me what you've got so far, don't be afraid, just send me it and I'll just tell you what I think about it, and hope to, you know, help you make a better track in the challenge. Now that's it, and I hope to see you back soon. Peace.